Welcome to Jobs in Tech. Welcome to the show today. Jobs in Tech in the house. Brad, what's happening in the world of technology and the craziness out there of all that crazy technology jazz?
No, there's lots going on, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm used to um, what did they describe you last week as?
Oh, the monster
The
truck
monster truck
guy.
guy, announcer.
Was that a little more low key today?
Absolutely. Where's
Yeah.
where's the vibrancy? Where's the voice? I want to hear.
Welcome to Jobs in Tech. Yeah, okay.
There we
Is that
go.
better? All right. Your monster truck rally
Right,
announcer, Jobs in Tech.
right.
Yeah, what do we
Awesome.
got going on today? Who's in the house? Who are we
Yeah.
talking to? What company are we
I'm
talking to?
excited for today. So today we have Justin from Guardsight, and Guardsight is a cybersecurity company. So I'm gonna kind of hand it over to Justin, let him kind of talk a little bit
Ooh,
about him, his background, and tell us a little bit about Guardsight.
yeah, let's do that.
Right on. Happy to be with you guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so my role, my background is kind of funny. I'm one of these guys who worked all over the place, a ton of different industries. The longest was actually in local government down in Garfield County, where I worked for 12 years. And then I decided that it was time to do something that was kind of a little more intellectually challenging than local government. So I kind of dove into cyber. I already had an interest in it anyway. I'd been a long time Linux user, probably using Linux since about the year 2000 or so. So I kind of had a concept of some things in computing already. I'd been a network administrator at a place, and at the end of the day, I just really wanted to change up careers. So that's what I did about 5 years ago. I
Okay.
went back to school, took some cybersecurity classes, broke into the industry while I was still working on that, and have just been in it ever since. Love it.
Awesome. So let me ask. I mean, I'm going to kind of throw a curveball at you here. I mean, what do you love
Sure.
about technology? What is that one thing that make you say, hey, I love this. I can do this for the rest of my life. Help me understand what that thing for you is.
Yeah, that's actually really hard to put into words. Some of it is just kind of there's a certain delight that comes from being able to use computers and computing in a way uh, that just saves a lot of time or does something really complex and really cool. Sometimes it's very elegant the way it's done. One of the things I've described to people is being able to accomplish something at a command line repeatedly and understand what's going on changes your whole view of technology. Being able to step aside from the graphical interface and to be able to get down into the guts of a system just changes your outlook forever. You can't view computing the same after that. So it's just kind of a delight to play with it, to push boundaries, see what you can do, and just have fun with it.
So it sounds like it's almost a challenge for you that you love, and just being able to build something complex and keep it going.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
And yeah, specifically in cybersecurity, what's interesting is it's not just what I build and make happen. It's what the bad guys do that is always fascinating to me.
Okay.
It is, yeah, oh yeah, they're highly innovative. So to be able to see what they're coming up with and ways that they can think of to abuse systems is really fascinating. I don't advocate being a bad guy.
Right.
Don't be a black hat hacker. But I have to admit that those guys can be pretty innovative.
With that said, I love it because we haven't really had a lot of security
No.
focused companies on the show. And it's kind
Mhm.
of its own little animal. We talk about IT, we talk about technology, and the IT world, security is kind of its own little
Niche.
silo almost. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's its
Mhm.
own little space. It is kind of you against the world, right? Even
Mhm.
even in your own companies, the security guy is almost against the other IT guys. It feels like. I mean, they're not, but it always felt like, dude, why is that guy not letting us do stuff? Geez, we got to have all these passwords. So I mean, it's such a different space. And is it the challenge of that? Is that what you love? That challenge of keeping everything safe and also protecting from all of the craziness out there. Is that kind of what drawn you specifically and the company itself?
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. The challenge of it, just kind of being able to understand things across disciplines, right? I mean, people tend to get siloed in technology, right?
Yep.
People tend to be a developer, and maybe you write in Go, or maybe you write in Python, and maybe do specific kinds of apps. After a while, you kind of find yourself unable to work across those silos into other fields. Where cybersecurity, you're touching all of it. So you have to have a good general knowledge and a good knowledge of, I guess, I would call it systems, and I don't mean that in just in the sense of
Generically.
computer systems, but yeah, generically, exactly, the ability to think across multiple systems in a holistic way, and it is really kind of mind blowing to do that, and then to be able to see little tiny artifacts, little pieces of data that you can draw conclusions from, and actually be able to find patterns that are out of the ordinary. That's just fascinating, and a lot of fun to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So with that, with talking about Guardsight specifically and the security world, how would you say you guys are kind of disruptive? I mean, security is a tough one because you're kind of at the mercy of everything else that's out there. What would you say is more disruptive in the Guardsight space?
Sure. So I'd say one of the things that makes us disruptive is the fact that we are, to use the internal Guardsight term, we are weapons agnostic. What that means is we will work with whatever piece of technology anybody brings to the fight. We don't care. We will operate all of it. We've probably operated it, for somebody else already. So the idea there is not that we are reliant on a specific piece of technology. What we're really good at is being able to utilize a lot of the interfaces that are out there, for example, APIs, webhooks, that kind of thing, to make all these systems work together in such a way that we're able to, gather, if not real-time data, very close to real-time data, to alert on things that are out of the ordinary.
So, having said that too, I mean, how would you consider you guys innovative and kind of cutting edge when it comes to cyber? I mean, is it just the fact that you guys know everything? Like, you guys have seen enough things that are out there, and you've worked on enough systems that you kind of have a better understanding, or help me understand that.
Yeah, and it's this is actually another one that's kind of hard to describe as well, because the the technology aspect of it also includes the human element, and so it's one thing to have a bunch of vendors sell a bunch of software that do certain things, but the fact of the matter is that will never, at least so far, we've never seen it approach a complete solution to anything. What you have to have is the ability to operate all of that. So our technology is actually in our ability to train people to do this kind of thing, and to also have the skills to stitch all those pieces together, stitch all those threads together. So it's not that we have to know how to operate one system, it's we have to know how to operate all systems. And so, yeah, it's the ability to weave that tapestry that makes us different, that sets us apart in our ability to just bring in whatever anybody is using and use it for the benefit of the customer.
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, I would assume that kind of requires a lot of skill sets from your current staff and them understanding and seeing different situations. Having said that, I mean, do you think that's kind of what makes you kind of stand out and be set apart from everybody else, is the fact that you guys have seen so much? Or help me understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so we worked in so many different kinds of environments that we've seen all manner of attacks, and part of what we do is incident response, as well as just monitoring and looking for these kinds of things. So yeah, we've seen how the bad guys operate. We understand it, and what we bring to it is just that holistic approach, that we have a plan of action for whatever is going to happen in a given day. That includes such things as automation. if I don't know if any of you guys, if either of you guys have ever looked at some of the data that comes out of the systems that people use to monitor for security events, but there's so many of them. If these are not tuned well, you're going to be absolutely lost. And the problem at that point becomes that you burn analysts out. They're looking at so many different things all day, every day that are the same. After a while, they just become numb to it. And so one of our key what would we call it? One of our key advantages, one of the things that really sets us apart and makes us disruptive, is the fact that we can not only bring all that stuff together, but then we start to automate it. We start to find the things that are repetitive. We can develop processes for taking some of the load off the humans and using computers for what they're good for, which is doing repetitive, boring tasks for us. So that's, I'd say, what really makes us competitive on that front is the partnership between the human and the machine.
So I'd like to know if we can get under
the hood
a little bit, as much as we can. And I understand a lot of times dealing with a security company, it's like, oh, well, we can't really tell you this, that, or the other. But I'm just curious. So what does it look like at the company as far as who's taking care of things? Do you have a bunch of dev people? What does it look like for the company? Who's running stuff?
Right. No, that's a great question, and it's a big question, but I'll do my best to provide you a good answer here. So we do have across the team various skills. I mean, this is, I'd say, one of our strengths actually is if somebody were to try to put our people in a box in terms of, oh, well, this is the kind of person that works at Guardsight, they'd have a really hard time, because across the team we've got just a huge variety of past experience. The people that come to Guardsight, it's almost like they're drawn here, and we'll come back to that maybe later.
Yeah.
But yeah. So to answer your question though, so we do have. I'd say the majority of our employees are what we call handlers on duty. These are the people who are watching alerts as they come in, and that can be from any number of systems. So there are kinds of software that are called endpoint detection and response, so EDR for short. This is software that has a little agent on workstations, on servers, or something like that, and it's sending data into kind of a central repository. We also, in a lot of our environments, have servers, huge numbers of servers in many cases, logging data to a central logging server. And we feed all of that into something that is built to detect patterns. So there's other kinds of software out there called SIEM, SIEM. You've probably seen some of those before. Anyway, you'll see things like Sumo Logic or Splunk, or some of these things that their whole purpose is to gather that data, and then you write rules that alert on certain kinds of patterns. So the idea is you're funneling this massive amount of data into kind of a central place from all different sources, and then you're looking for those kinds of patterns. So it can be network traffic. If you see something anomalous, maybe something leaving an environment on a strange port, or going to a domain that's never been seen before. All of these are kinds of things that are what we call indicators of compromise. And so what you have is exactly, yeah. And so what our analysts do is, when something is what we call IOC positive, or internet or indicator of compromise positive, they track that down, and they determine if that's really a thing or if there's an alternate explanation for it. So that's the majority of what we do at Guardsight. But we also have people who are who have other multiple roles. So for example, on my incident response team, the team that I run, we also have the same people who are working to develop some of the automation rules, as well as integrate various software stacks into something that we can access very easily via our ticketing system. So hopefully that answers the question. Like I say, it was a big question, and that's kind of a big answer.
Yeah, it was kind of a really, really broad question. So I mean, thank you for kind of getting in, under the hood, so to speak. Kind of staying on topic, but kind of diverting a little bit. help me understand, what do you look for when you're like when you're looking for somebody to join the team? What stands out, or what qualities do you look for in a candidate?
Oh, can I ask a question before
Yeah,
you go
please.
there? I'm just curious with what he just said a minute ago. How do you, and we hear the AI word all the time.
Right.
Mhm.
Now, everybody is thinking AI is going to take over every job, but kind of what I'm hearing from you, and I just want to know if this is true or not, is this is something that human beings have to do. I mean, could there? I guess in the future, of course, there could be an AI that kind of tracks down, but it seems to me you'd get tons of false positives and all of
Mhm.
this different stuff using AI, and that's kind of where you guys are. Is you're using human beings to figure out where the real issues are. Would you say that that would be a hard thing for AI to replace?
Yeah, for sure. In
Good
fact,
question.
one of the things, it's funny in the industry, one of the standing jokes we have is that vendors are including the term AI in everything, or machine learning in everything
Right.
they put out. And it's kind of like, we imagine the conversation goes something like, the marketing team of the vendor goes to the engineer and says, hey, do we have AI in our product? And they're like, no. We have some rules that we write by hand. And they're like, but it kind of looks like AI, right? They're like, no, it does not even a little bit. And then then the marketing copy comes out and it's like, no, with AI. So, that's, I think everybody's jumping on this bandwagon in terms of
They
where is
are,
AI,
and
Absolutely.
that's
right?
kind of why I asked the question, because we hear that a lot, especially on the show where everybody's talking about innovation and stuff. But there's still spaces, and we talk all the time. There are places where AI is going to have a hard time replacing the human
Absolutely.
condition of understanding us humans.
Yeah, I mean, I think just
Yeah,
some positions there is no end all be all with AI. This is a human task that you have to do. You have to like
for sure.
assess.
Yeah. So
Now,
I
I would
just
say
wanted
this.
clarification, and I
No, that's
love it.
awesome.
I think your answer was great.
Yeah, for
Agreed.
sure. Well, and maybe I can expand on that just a little bit too. So we do recognize that, yeah, as AI develops, sure, it's going to be able to help. But I guess we've always taken the approach that it's like, yeah, we welcome the help, but it's still going to take a human to make that
It's
call at the
not
end of
going
the
to
day.
replace. Yeah.
Exactly. It'll
Mhm.
it'll
Yeah.
assist but not replace.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would argue that in fact what we do with kind of our efforts towards automation is indistinguishable from AI if somebody didn't know what we were doing under the hood.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and I think there's also an element to this is just my own personal thing, if I can, divert for a
please.
second. But
Absolutely.
one of my favorite things is what's called a hype curve, and I think we're definitely the crest of the phase one of the hype curve right now. Now, that doesn't mean what's interesting is what typically follows is the valley of disillusionment, where everybody says, "Oh, it was all garbage. We were misled with my money. I want my money back." But then what happens is work continues on, and eventually it actually develops into something interesting. So people, there's a phrase I can't, I believe it's referred to as Amara's law, but people tend to um, overestimate change in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. I think that's consistent with the hype curve. Eventually it'll be doing some cool stuff for it. Is it doing it now? Not yet. It's getting there, but we view it as more of a partnership with a human, an augment of a human rather than a replacement.
I think that's the perfect example of what happened with the internet.
Yep.
Originally, the internet came out, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, cool. And everybody was jumping in, and all these startups blew up. And then we had the dot com burst.
Mm-hmm.
2000, everything blew up, and everybody's like, oh, internet's dead. Screw the internet. Nobody wants to have anything to do with the internet. But then it all leveled out, and now we can't live without it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how I anticipate AI will go.
Yep.
I mean, we've been
Agreed.
working on AI for a long time, right? It's a developing technology, but it's not done.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
nowhere
think you're
near.
perfect.
Yeah.
It will level off and just become a part of our lives, and it
Exactly.
won't be hyped. It will just be what it is, and we'll like, man, how the hell did we live without this?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. So let's get back
Yeah.
on path, Brad. I took us down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I
And
had
I
to.
love those rabbit holes because I mean those are where the good and interesting things come out. So I love it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, kind of staying back on course or course correcting. Help us understand. I mean, what do you look for in candidates? I mean, what is a good candidate to you, and what makes one stand out to you that says, okay, this one
Fits
is
with the culture.
exactly.
I mean, how do you figure that out for you?
So, it's one of those things internally we've talked about, and we're like, what is it that we're doing right? Because we continue to get some of the most outstanding people I've ever worked with, and it's like, all right, what is it about our process that brings these people to us? One of the weird things, but we've heard it from several people who've applied with us, is that something in our website resonates with them. The call to duty, the clear purpose, the idea that we are cyber warriors. I mean, this resonates with people. So it's kind of a filter at the beginning. The people who are waiting around, for the 5 o'clock bus tend not to. It doesn't resonate with them, and so we tend to filter just by being who we are initially. So that's kind of the first thing, which has been kind of an odd observation on our part, is that we are not out there advertising for trying to hire people. What we do is we keep the pipeline open, and then we kind of attract the right people, and then we filter. Now, not everybody who approaches us, of course, gets hired. That's
right.
We've got great candidates, and sometimes we just don't have the spot for them. And in a lot of cases, we'll actually try to keep them in mind if something opens later on, if they're still available. But I would say that one of the things we do that may sound really weird in tech is that we are relatively unimpressed by CVs. We are after drive and just that component of whatever it is in the human psyche that gives people the ability to want to achieve. We seek that out more than we do, a ton of certs or a specific degree or anything like that. So it's really strange in that we hire for ability, not necessarily history. So sometimes people have come to us and they really, on paper, would never ever get a job in cybersecurity, and yet we see something about them that it's like, yeah, this person is driven. They want to change their life. They're going to do what it takes, and so we will give them a shot. And some of those people have turned out to be some of our best performers. With some of those folks are in management now with us. So kind of hard to articulate. I will say this though, we start out with a first round interview for those who, we look through applications, and for those that look promising, we will give them a first screen, and it is a technical screen. And a lot of times they'll come in there and just be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is hard. In some cases we'll say, all right, come back in 6 months. If you're really driven, what we're looking for, come back. But in a lot of cases, they've done enough work, so they have a baseline of knowledge, if not all the knowledge. And then the second round of interviews is really kind of the cultural fit, the personality aspect of it. So that's getting back to what I think makes our hiring process very special is, we'll look at the results of the first screen, but that's more of a filter. After that, we really want to just know what kind of person they are.
Yeah. So, to me, it almost sounds like you're more concerned with understanding and relating to the person to see how they can fit your culture and your environment. And you look for that
Absolutely.
drive in somebody.
I think too, when I hear you talk about the website and when you said that stuff, that people kind of are drawn to that, it's almost like we hear all the time about culture. We even talk about it on the show all the time. We got to find the right culture. But you're saying that it's your mission that is kind of pulling in people first, and that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's definitely unique.
Would you say that's true? That it's your
Absolutely.
mission that's kind of pulling people in, and that then the culture comes second after what you're trying to create?
Yeah, so I would say that those who've come in and have said, hey, I'm blown away by what you guys are about. I love the fact that you guys are into this. It's almost, if I can borrow a term I heard in a video game a long time ago, it's like your warrior monks. It's like you guys are intense, and I want that. I want to be part of that. And so it's like when that resonates with people, we're going to listen to what they have to say, because that's kind of how we view what we do.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That's a differentiator that I don't think we've heard a lot.
No, I don't think we have.
It's
we've
very
always
cool.
Yeah, Bobby, like you said, I think we've always heard culture, but we've
We're
never
creating
heard.
this great culture, but we don't hear about the mission as much of
Absolutely.
what we're trying to create. I think that's very cool, and it is. It's desirable. I can see where, man,
100%.
when I believe in what they believe in, I want to be a part of that, whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. And of course, you still, I mean, you still got to have a decent culture. You still
Yeah.
got to be treated decently. You still got to have, you know, a fun place to work or what have you. But I love it that your mission is what driving people there. That's super cool.
And to piggyback off that too, I mean, I think they understand their niche well enough that they understand what they're looking for enough to be able to say like, hey, look, yes, you have, I think you have what it takes, but you're not quite there yet, so come back in 6 months and let's reevaluate and let's have that conversation again. So I think that's definitely a plus as well.
Yeah.
For sure. And I would say as well, the culture kind of derives from the mission. It is strange as that is to say, but it's like when you get people together with a purpose in mind, culture follows. You don't have to create it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things we do as well is we are an incredibly positive company. That is, we lift each other up. You know, a lot of I've seen managerial advice about, oh, well, you should say this to employees, or do this to motivate employees. It's like, nah, we build each other up and just keep an eye on each other. And if somebody looks fatigued, we say, hey man, you need to step away. You need to go dark for a few days. We are just about supporting and lifting each other, and that is our culture.
That's awesome. I mean, that's huge. I mean, because understanding and knowing that somebody's got your back is really what's most important. Is hey, I'm burned out. I need to take a couple days off. But for your manager to be able to see that, that's huge.
So really quickly, how big is the team? Is this a collective of mostly tech, and what kind of divisions do you have? I mean, I'm sure you have a marketing department, a sales department, but I'm assuming kind of your big chunk is your technology. I'm just curious, what does that infrastructure look like, if you can tell us?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. So I would say, just to be clear, in our logo, you may see that it says Guardsight and Iron Bow Company. So we were acquired in February by Iron Bow, but what's cool is they have just let us run as we do. So we've got
To hear that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Too many takeovers and
right.
sellouts, and then they just kind of
get gobbled up and don't become the
up.
same.
Yeah, I love to hear it when they know how to do it.
They've done a really good job of just saying, hey, the reason we acquired you, by the way, their first ever acquisition. So they're a company of like 1,000 people plus, and they shopped for a long time before they made their first acquisition. And it was just a cultural fit. We talked about culture, but there was just a good vibe there on top of everything else. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So Iron Bow is our parent company, but we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Iron Bow. And Guardsight itself consists of only about 60 people. But within that, we do have a small sales team. We've got about 3, maybe 4 people on our sales team now. We've got, I say 3, maybe 4, because I know somebody's, switching over from an analyst position to kind of a sales engineer position. So I'm not sure if that's complete yet. But it's a tiny little sales team, and yet they've managed to do just outstanding work via partners and via just direct sales. They grew us to what we are today, where we became interesting to an outside party. But the majority of the folks inside Guardsight are technical. So I'd say, probably at least 50 out of the 60-ish are technical to one degree or another. Now, we have people at various stages of professional growth, professional development, but the goal is to get everybody, highly conversant with all the things that we do. So within all our operations, I'd say, say 35 or 40, just off the top of my head, if I had to guess for a number, probably close to 40, are part of what we call operations. So these are our handlers on duty. These are the people who watch the wire and analyze stuff that comes in. We also have a small offensive security team. So our pen testers, our red team, whatever you want to call them. So we've got about 4 or 5 folks on that. And then we have my team, which is special operations, which includes incident response. So these are our senior analysts who've been there, done that. When somebody gets popped, we're who you call. We're the fire department. as it were. So that's what our role is. So those are kind of the three main areas of what Guardsight does.
Okay. I'm not sure if you can disclose this, but I'm just curious. I'm gonna throw this question out here. What's the most interesting attack that you've seen?
Oh man,
You've seen a couple, I'm sure.
Right.
One
yeah,
or two.
no, yeah.
What's
so
the one
I've
or
seen
two
some
that just kind of
crazy
stands
stuff.
out?
Yeah, so one that always comes to mind is where when we got in the fight, the IT team there was literally duking it out with a bad guy. They were moving and they were closing accounts and deleting stuff. We got in there and our job was to come in and figure out how in the world they got in there. So we did a deep dive. This was a long one. This was about a 6-week incident response. And
Oh wow!
by comparison, most of the ones we do are 3 days, 5 days, something like this. So we did a really deep dive in there, and throughout the course of the investigation, we found that it wasn't just one threat actor who'd gotten in and was moving around and doing bad things. There were two, and they came in through two different routes. One of them was phishing. That's like everybody,
Right.
phishing's always a thing. But one of them got in via phishing. Another came in through an unpatched firewall that they thought they had patched, by the way. So they were doing what they should, but they missed a second patch that came along right after. And bad guys noticed that. They came in, started moving around, started to connect outside devices to the environment, and we're getting set up for a ransomware attack. So just the fact that we saw two threat actors moving the environment and had to be aware of what we call target fixation, where everybody wanted to fit these two threat actors into one threat actor because that's what we usually see. So there was this push to try to force this narrative, and it wasn't until we stopped and a member of my team said, I think there's two threat actors in here. They were able to say, oh, yep, because now we see how this threat actor A moves, how the tools they use, the kinds of stuff they do, and it's different than threat actor B. And so we were able to actually say that even though they were in the environment at the same time, we could then tease out the differences between the two, and complete a report that gave the customer closure on what happened. So
Gosh,
that was interesting.
Brings back memories. I remember we had this was 15 years ago at least. We had something was going on. Everybody's going crazy. Accounts are being locked out. Oh my gosh. When that, IT is funny. It's mellow, you're mellow, and then times of just complete craziness. Come to find out, one of the WAN guys in Germany had done an any on the firewall for traffic, any, and everybody that knows if you do that on a firewall, it meant that any traffic from anywhere could come in at any time, and it did.
Wow!
But it took us a while.
We actually had. It's funny you'd say any. That was the second one I was thinking of. That was more recent. We had a situation where, it was any into about half a dozen at least, maybe more IPs, and one of those was running some very vulnerable software. And in that particular case, we actually found evidence that I think 3 or 4 different threat actors had at least popped their head in, had a look around, but one of them decided they were going to push it and ransomware the customer. So, the any thing was one of the first things we found. We're like, you got to change that now.
You only have to go through that once as a WAN admin to realize, I better not do crap like that anymore. And it's honest. That's a tough one. I mean, you're out there doing a bunch of configs, and you're just not. But that's a hard lesson to learn. But anyway, that's beautiful. It's cool. This is awesome. I think we could talk all day, but we do. Yeah. We got 2 of our last. I think they're fun questions. What do you think about the future of the technology of Guardsight? Where do you think you guys are going future-wise?
Yeah, so I mean, we do continue to see slow migration to the cloud. Large organizations, of course, take longer and find all the hard ways to do that kind of migration. So it's going to take a while. So we continue to see those kinds of things, cloud assets as being a lot of the new targets, and so being able to recognize. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's on the cloud, it's secure. It's like, well, not when you leave
There
your
can still be
credentials
threats, right?
in a GitHub repository, right? You leave your creds out in the open. It's not really that secure.
It's
So
as secure as whatever you're putting in the cloud is taking care of it. It's so funny that people think cloud means a magical place. There's still hardware somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is
That
the
has
cloud?
to
It's
be
somebody else's
protected.
computer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You gotta love it.
Yeah. So
Technology.
definitely that's an element of it. I think we're seeing as well that one of the problems we run into is what we refer to as weapons saturation. So the idea is that in some cases, a vendor comes along and says, "Hey, our weapon, our software is so much better than the other guys." And so they say, "Okay, well, we'll give it a try." So they install it, but it's not fully configured. Now you've got two things in there. You've got the previous one plus the new one, and then next year it repeats. And after a while, you get all this buildup of stuff, and it's giving you so much information that it's not really useful anymore. And so I'd say one of the things that the industry is hopefully coming to an understanding of is that, like, hey, pick the right tools for your environment, and get good at those. Don't buy everything that comes along. You're going to
That's good.
you're
Information
yourself,
overload.
That's good.
exactly.
Advice.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's man. I used to, when we deal with vendors and they would go, yeah, it does 400 things. It does this, it does this, it does this. And I'm like, dude, I needed to do 3 things. And I wanted to do 3 things without messing up. I don't give a crap that it does 400 things. I needed to do 3.
Just 3.
Right.
Oh,
It's like the Unix philosophy, right? It's like, do one thing, do it extremely well, and make the output something you can send into something else. That's if vendors did that, that would be an amazing thing.
So true. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Simple is better and safer. Let's just face
Agreed.
it. The more complicated you get, the more
Have
easy
risk.
there is to have vulnerabilities. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. We got
One more last question,
one
right?
last question. Yes,
All right.
we got to ask the last question. So this is a broad one. We like to just get input from everybody that comes on the show. What do you think about the future of technology in general?
And where it's going.
Yeah.
And this is more of a personal question. This doesn't have to be related to Guardsight. We
Yes.
just want to get your understanding of where you think it's going.
Right. So, it is funny because I do see so many things that are what the general path to something is. It's new and shiny, and then people notice it less, and eventually it's invisible, right? So we continue to see Internet of Things with one of my favorite jokes is IoT. The S stands for security, but there's no turning back from the idea that technology is getting always cheaper, and so you're going to see it continue to end up in more and more places. So I think you're going to see things that used to be rare items for kind of wealthy, first-time adopters. I think you're going to see that stuff continue to get cheaper. You're going to see more stuff embedded. I do think we're in kind of a weird place when it comes to interfacing technology with human bodies, maybe even human brains. That's something to watch for sure. And to then take the data that's coming from those interfaces and running it through machine learning algorithm and start to get predictive with that. I mean, we're in a weird place now. I'm definitely not a dystopian kind of guy. I'm like, I think there's a lot of upsides to what we're going to see from this, but it is something you need to watch. We have to probably just be aware of some of these kinds of things and how they could be misused. So that's the security guy in me coming out, I guess, is how could it be abused, right? How could these new leaps in technology, this integration with humans, really become kind of a bad or a negative thing?
The first part you talked about, I find really interesting. Do you feel like future technology is going to put everybody, and I think it has already, kind of on a more even playing field? Whether you're a company that's doing $1 million in revenue or $1 billion in revenue, don't you think kind of the tools are making the world a little more less easy for the big companies that can spend millions of dollars? Do you think that's going to just keep going? I mean, is that what you're talking about when you talked about that at the beginning? Is it going to make an easier playing field for all companies?
So I think there's some potential there for sure. So I guess I would think of it this way: is um, the investment at that point is going to be in the developers who are very creative and being able to bring the things together in new and innovative ways. Because it's getting cheaper. I mean, a lot of things become open source over time, right? So like, what's your barrier to entry? Just having a person who can understand it, who can deploy it. You don't have to pay big licensing fees anymore for things that can do every bit as much as expensive proprietary solutions. But of course, where do you pay? You pay on the human side. You have to have somebody who can actually understand what it is and deploy it. Will it democratize technology? Possibly, right? The big companies, they use a lot of their money to try to keep that stuff out of an environment, but it doesn't always help them. When companies are small and upcoming, they're nimble, they're fast, they can change a lot quicker than the big companies who are somewhat sclerotic as they grow. So
I connect that to media, and personally, 20 years ago, you had to be a part of a big media company, media production company to do anything on TV or anything like that. The coming of YouTube and everything, now we got people that are making millions and millions of dollars that started with an iPhone or something, and that has really, I think, changed the whole media space. Even
it has.
News, everything is anybody can be an expert almost, or at least look legit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what might the future of tech. These companies will look legit because they'll have the same kind of
setup,
back end, backbone, cloud service, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as an example of how just everything has changed. I mean, it used to be that if you were an author, you were, an up and coming author, maybe you have your first novel out, you'd shop it around to a bunch of publishers and agents and all this kind of stuff. Maybe you'd get a bite, maybe you wouldn't. But now the right TikTok review makes your book go viral. So it's changed the whole thing. That whole traditional model can be totally upended by an influencer, as they say, somebody who really likes your book, who has a lot of followers. Just give it a mention. So it's so many things are can be disrupted. Whether they will be or not, I don't know. I'm not very good at making predictions about the future, but I will say that the potential is there for sure.
Cool.
Awesome.
Wow, this is good.
Yeah,
man,
this is really good.
Cool, good stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show.
So Justin,
it's been my pleasure. This has been fun.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you, and where can they go to learn more about the company? Is it just the website itself, or help me understand that?
Yeah, for sure. Go to guardsight.com. If you want to, if you're interested in some of our services, you want to talk to some of our salespeople, sales@guardsight.com is a great one. And that's a good distro list that way. So reach out that way. And if somebody says, hey, I heard Justin on a podcast, I want to talk to him, they can forward that on to me.
Awesome.
Very good. Excellent.
Well, cool.
Any last words, Brad?
No, I mean, I'm speechless as always.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great show. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time on Jobs in Tech. Catch you later.